this idea of politics being linear is a really, really, really big trap. And it keeps our brains into the right or to the left instead of using both sides of our brains, right? We have a right and we have a left side of our brain that are meant to cooperate. They're meant to be used together. And that happens in the limbic system when we became mammals. And so what we're doing is, too often, I believe we're making an assumption that that's getting us into a lot of trouble today, which is left to right as a linear equation, okay, as a linear paradigm. Okay, so we have right and we have left. For me, it's right and left, but for you, it's right and left. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that when we talk about, you know, what liberalism or leftism is today, it's very different than what it was when we think about a Kennedy. Okay, and that's all fine and good, and the scale slides and whatever, but we come into a really big problem when we look at it, and that is Hitler was a National Socialist. So what are we talking about here, right? And sometimes we go so fast and we make all of these due to these micro biases, that we just, oh yeah, whatever, and we go along with it. But if we slow down these horses, then we kind of understand that we need to resolve that, sort of that paradox in this equation. Okay, we need to do that, because only then can we make sense of it, right? Because how can we have one person on both extreme ends of this linear paradigm? It can't exist. Okay, I mean, it does exist right now, but it makes no sense, especially when you listen to the rhetoric, of the lefties and of the mainstream media, and even if you talk about the conservative, healthy national, borders and whatever, low tax, little, small government and all that good stuff, then it can't. We need to resolve that. And so a couple of years ago, I was, thinking about this really hard, and it seemed to me all of a sudden this idea that actually what we need to do is introduce personality. Okay, so a trait of our personality, of our behavior. Okay, so now what we can do is we add extremist or fanaticism into the equation. Okay, and so then we can put that on each end of the equation, because the extreme left and the extreme right, they're fanatics. Okay, and then it came to me, well, why not make a circle of this? Okay, so now we have a circle where we have, in a sense, the Kennedy liberals on the left, and we have sort of, in a sense, the Reagan conservatives, small government, limited government, on sort of the right and left sides of this circle. And then we have kind of what I would, the libertarians in the center there. You have conservatives. You have the liberals, the conservatives, libertarians, and then you have the fanatics at the bottom, right? You have the healthy sort of, what I would call, in a sense, the real sort of leftist, the good, the wanting to do good through cooperating together, creating national welfare, and there's arguments for everything, on this, without getting into the whole thing, there's arguments for both. So they want to have this collective, nationally organized, good. And the conservatives say, wait a second, no, 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 no. We want small government. Government's out of our hair. We don't want to have anything to do with the government, out of the school systems, out of the healthcare, out of education, out of everything. We don't want them in anything. Okay. Then we're balanced. Okay. So now we can more easily understand this whole thing, where now it makes sense. Sort of the fanatic left, as they actually meet, a hair line between them, but both fanatics. Okay, and around. For somebody, I believe, like you, this still isn't good enough, because there's a spiritual side that needs to be confronted with all of this. Okay, and now we go from one-dimensional to two-dimensional, and I believe into the third dimension of this whole thing, which is we can start going a front to back circle. Okay, where we have sort of what would be considered an atheist, and sort of the religion, the orthodox religions, and then between those, the fanatics, right, and the more open-minded, sort of in a sense liberal thinking, what's it called, religious persons. And the same thing from the atheistic side, the Scientology, this, where science is the new God, in a sense, the opposing positions of them. And so now we start to have a sphere, right, where if we travel across this, now we start to get gray zones all over the place. So we can start to really make sense of how we can create a way in order to create perspective, a healthy perspective, not just right, left, center, because there's no way of it making any sense of that, because as we saw, Hitler was both ends of the spectrum, which can't exist. It can't exist. But if we go to that fanaticism, then all of a sudden he is the perfect midline in the lower quadrant of fanaticism, where he actually embraced, somehow amazingly, the both perspectives of right and left. So now we get that three-dimensional. So now, okay, now it's like, okay, so but we're still, in a sense, until like 3 weeks ago, it's still superficial, isn't it? It's still on the surface. And then I realized, wow, is there a center? Is there actually a center to this sphere? This weightless, absolutely free of gravitation, free of pull in any direction, just existing, observing from the inside out all of these different behaviors that are going on around us. And I believe that's like the true, what I would call, rather than religion or science, maybe we're talking about true spirituality. And even from sort of so we'll turn it, and so we have the science and the religion over here. So now even these can work their way in, and even within this sphere we can move a little bit. So now all of a sudden we have 1, 2, 3, and now we have the fourth dimension. Okay, which is where I believe the body and the soul meet, in a sense. So there's not time as the fourth, but as space would be considered without considering time. Like, I guess we could call it the fifth dimension, where we meet with this stuff, but it's 4 dimensions. Okay, so we're going in on ourselves. We're going inside ourselves, connecting with our true soul, which in a sense is here to experience all of this stuff, and without taking away sort of the amazing uniqueness, amazing beauty of each one of our physical bodies that have had all of their experiences, that are going through, that have their different abilities, and so on, which is, you know, we are each our own spirit's avatars. Our bodies are our avatars. We are not our bodies. We are something else. Our bodies are our avatars, and our avatars are our experience, our ways of it's our interface, right, with the world. And so I believe through my work, through just experiencing life, so many people are living on this one-dimensional plane, and that has a lot to do with how they understand themselves, and how they are sort of communicating, how they're interacting, how they're working through their own personal stuff. And you can only, you know, you can only know what you know. And I believe, you know, if we're just sort of thrown into society and you know, left to, you know, sort of the understanding of what society is today, then that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a product of that. Our souls can do their best to influence this, but if our nervous systems and our belief systems, all of these micro biases, you know, on a survival level and reproductive level, and, you know, sexuality, political, interpersonal, interrelational, you know, being parents, if it's all this, you know, hard, you know, polarity, I am who I am and you are who you are, and all that, and there's no refined way of accepting that I am who I am and you are who you are, but we don't have any way in order to make sense of these interactions other than sort of just simply philosophical ideas, and we don't actually have a way of going into this avatar and reprogramming it to you know, from all of these micro biases. These more complicated concepts will be impossible truly to not only really understand, because, as they say, life is an illusion, okay, and that illusion is basically our bodies, okay, and our senses. Everything has to pass through our senses, everything. And so if it doesn't, so everything doesn't have to directly, we can, you know, we can connect, but still at some point on a conscious level, we're working with our nervous system. And so we have something also called mirror neurons, okay, physical, real neurons that exist throughout our body that are like little antennas picking up the vibrations that are going on around us. So that's our so-called sixth sense, right? And we have others, but even on a physical level, we have something called, we truly have a sixth sense. And everything anyways, even if we're doing telepathy and all these wonderful things, astral projection, we're still having at some point to interface with our nervous system, okay? Some people are gifted with it, some people aren't. Well, how about if there was a way to train our way to these abilities? And they truly are simply abilities, and it's just a matter of a little bit of rewiring of some of our neuroprogramming in order to improve our ability to perceive this world in a more refined, in a more sort of complicated 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional, who knows how many dimensions. But in any case, this idea of politics being linear is a really, really, really big trap. And it keeps our brains into the right or to the left instead of using both sides of our brains, right? We have a right and we have a left side of our brain that are meant to cooperate. They're meant to be used together. And that happens in the limbic system. When we became mammals, it became really, really, really important to sort of, well, we were able to get more out of that whole thing. Even fish and reptiles have that as well. But But in any case, so okay, that's my little sort of stuff on politics. 4 dimensions: linear, 2-dimension circle, 3 dimensions, getting in not just behavior but also science and religion, and then the 4th going into the center of this, where I believe is where we should truly strive, because in a sense all of this other stuff is interesting. We need to all be able to have all of these different perspectives. If you don't have these perspectives, for one, you're not growing, you're not understanding, you're not developing, okay? Because in a sense, if they exist on the planet, there's a reason for it, okay? And so let's embrace it and bring it into our sphere rather than try and reject it. When we're rejecting it, we're fractionalizing ourselves, we're destroying parts of ourselves, and we create all kinds of really bad psychological states. But so I'll just shut it off there. We'll get into the religious and psychological, as well as postural, behavioral. It's just beautiful. By the way, I've sent in a application to partake in this great gathering that you have in the summer in England, and so if you would like, I would really enjoy to come and share some of these ideas with you all. And I think the treatments, the unity therapy, as I call it, because it truly unifies everything, and through our nervous system, and the training, the neurotraining that we can, that the therapy is based off of. Anyhow, peace, love. Talk to you guys later. Bye.